Coming to you live from my apartment, it's Rob Has a Podcast, and now here's the guy who's ready to spike some amazing race coverage right over the net with my feet, Rob Cesternino. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our amazing race 27, episode 1 recap. Can you frickin' believe it? Here we are, ready to talk about it, and here with me is a person I've talked to so much in the past 8 days. Here she is back with me to talk about another season. It's the great Jessica Liese. Jessica, how are you?
Well, I'm pretty good, Rob, but I'm skeptical of your ability to spike anything with your feet if you're not wearing tiny white shorts.
I am.
Oh, that's true. I
tiny
can't
white
see you.
Shorts.
So.
Yes, Liese got them for me. I won't start the music. All right, so here we are, ready to go on the night that Amazing Race 27 premiere. I think this was a fun cast. We went to a very beautiful locale, and yes, Phil, I'm talking about the location, not the woman on the mat with you. Thank you very much. But we've got a lot to talk about, as it was a night where TMZ, they ended up getting what, the DOA? What would we say? What? Give me some initials.
KIA.
TKO. Yeah.
DOA.
So very sad because I was really looking forward to the Team TMZ. I thought they were going to be funny.
Yeah, they seemed like they were funny. They were, I don't know, they were a little bit on the wrong side of the funny mean line.
Yeah.
But
that's what they do, though.
I guess that is, it's what they do for a living. And
tell me, you didn't really know who they were. Were you into them through one night?
They were snarky, and I like a team with snark. I liked them more than I thought I was going to like them.
Yeah, I felt like they definitely had, like, Courtney Yates upside.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Courtney Yates sometimes, or Corinne Kaplan, I think, is the better example, because she goes on the wrong side of that line more often.
Yeah, so unfortunately, Kelly and Siobhan are gone here after one episode on The Amazing Race, and we will talk about all of it from the first leg of the race here on our first race recap of the new season. Of course, we are live on robhasawebsite.com, as we will be after all the episodes. We've got the chat room open here on robhasawebsite.com. Plus, we are going to be taking your tweets, hashtag RHAP, and then we're also going to be taking comments from our YouTube channel at robhasawebsite.com/YouTube. Okay, Jess, let's get into this. Of course, Jessica was my guest on the Survivor podcast this week. She answered all of your RHAP voicemails on the podcast with Jenna Lewis and did a fantastic job.
Yeah, we were just talking 24 hours ago, Rob.
Yeah, and now here we are talking about a whole different CBS reality show.
Whole different premiere.
Okay, Jess, so the first episode, talk to me about your initial reactions. What is the headline from episode 1 of Amazing Race 27?
Well, I think headline 1 is half the people on this show really weren't prepared, I think, is the headline that we're going with here.
In what way? What did you see that made you feel like teams were not prepared?
We saw people overthinking. We saw, if you see weather-dependent fast forward, you should just give that one a hard pass. We saw people get out of their cab too early. We saw a lot of detour switching that maybe didn't need to be done. It was a difficult leg, I think, a very difficult first leg, and I saw a lot of people making a lot of mistakes.
Okay, so we'll get into all that. I actually felt like it wasn't that difficult of a first leg in terms of the number of things they had to do, but I did feel like the two tasks that were presented, sand or sidewalk, did present some difficulties to the teams.
Yeah, it was kind of an issue of quality over quantity.
Okay, well, let's start off with Team TMZ, who both of us were somewhat down on after our cast preview, where we just felt like, how bad do they want it? Jess, when you watched that tonight, did you feel like there was quit in Team TMZ?
Well, to their credit, they finished all of their tasks, but it really didn't seem like, towards the end, it seemed like they were not really inclined to be there anymore. It was probably very hot, I think, and they were really not getting it, and they were frequently talking about how they were really not getting it.
Yeah, and I think that the heat and the sun might have been a factor for them as well.
Yeah, it gets hot there.
Jess, we saw all of the teams have to change into their bathing suits, and then when Team Shack Attack, they were the first ones to get to the beach in Rio, and they put on their bathing suits, and it was like, okay, were these their own bathing suits that they brought? But then we heard that then we were talking about that his bathing suit was just, probably too short, and she didn't like it, and so then we found out that all of the teams had to wear these very skimpy bathing suits. How recent of a phenomenon is this for you in Amazing Race? Okay, Amazing Racers, now put on these bathing suits.
Well, I've never seen people specifically being provided with bathing suits, but there have been occasions where people have been required to strip down to more than they might have been strictly comfortable with, or put on some kind of ridiculously skimpy costume that, left very little to the imagination. Like, that has happened a lot. It's even happened, like, on this show in Brazil in the past.
It did feel like to me that this was a night where the Amazing Race sort of kicked off the new season by saying, like, hey, we can be eye candy too on the Amazing Race. It's not just Survivor and Big Brother.
Yeah, one thing I hope you guys didn't bring with you is your shame.
Yeah, and it seems like that the race has gone to a very cush, tropical, or beach location, seemingly the first leg of a number of recent seasons. Is that also fair to say? Is that a thing that the Amazing Race takes you to basically a beach on that first location for the season premiere?
Well, I think there are a lot of beaches in the world, and it's a good place. There are always a lot of flights to vacation destinations like that. So it makes sense for that to be an early leg because they know they can get everybody there fairly quickly.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably part of it. And also, they want to get everybody out of their comfort zone right away. And what better way to do that than to throw them in their bathing suits and stick them on a beach in 100-degree weather? That really
for some
separates.
Teams, they were uncomfortable, and other teams that they were very comfortable.
Yeah, it separates the men from the boys, as it were.
So Team TMZ, they ultimately go out here on one side of the race. But I guess the big story of the night was the green team, Justin and Diana, where they really went from everything was going their way. They were on their way. They got on the first flight. They were headed towards a fast forward. And then ultimately they ended up, because of wind, they lost all their money. And it seemed like they were on the brink of elimination. They do survive the first night. Jess, let's go through the decision making in terms of going all out to get on the first flight and then going to the fast pass or trying to go for the fast forward. Do you like the idea of trying to be that team that's on that first flight by yourself? Because I thought that it was a good point that was raised about that if you're all by yourself, can't you just get totally screwed by not knowing which way to go?
Yeah, it's a fair point, especially if every single other team is on that other flight. And it's happened before where one of the teams is on this flight that's supposed to get them in much earlier, and it just doesn't happen for whatever reason.
Yeah, what if the flight gets stuck on the runway? We've seen that a number of times before.
Yeah, it's happened a lot, and I would really rather be on a flight with at least one other team.
Also, do you mark yourself as a big threat to go out there and win the first leg?
I think marking yourself as a threat is kind of an overrated thing in the Amazing Race. Like, I think it doesn't really... The only time it comes up is on the U-turn. You've probably got a few legs to go, realistically speaking. It's okay to go hard on that first leg because you're not necessarily going to plant a target on your back. There's a lot of race between now and the U-turn.
Now, Jess, were you surprised that a fast forward shows up on the very first leg of the race?
Yes and no. Yes, because it's not something we've seen since the early seasons when they had them on every leg. And no, because they're trying to mix it up. They want you to be in a place where you know anything can happen. And the racers, if they know that there's going to be a fast forward roughly on legs 4, 5, and 6, they're not going to be looking for it. They're not going to be strategizing about it. And that this comes up right away, I thought it was interesting. I didn't like the logistics of having the fast forward be something that you can pick up at your first stop after you get off the plane, and one team is supposed to be further ahead. Like, that seemed like they're just rewarding the team that won the race even more.
Yeah. Do you think that production put that in there and they knew it was a windy day? They knew somebody was going to get a real screw job if they tried to go for that fast forward?
I think there was definitely an element of risk to it, and that part is great because fast forwards never involve any risk, and it's nice when one does. However, it's something they've done in recent memory. Like, I feel like if they've done it in a season that you and I covered, that might be a little too recent to be trucking that out again.
Yeah, the hang gliding?
Well, fast forward, weather-dependent fast forward.
Yeah.
And we've seen hang gliding, too. Well, paragliding, which I think is similar.
So do you think that production had a good sense that whatever team was going to go and use this fast forward, they were going to get screwed?
I think they had a pretty good sense of it. And it actually, I mean, who knows? Who knows how dangerous that wind really was? It could be one of these things like, I don't want to get all tinfoily on you, but it could be a trap. It could be production like knowing that nobody's going to hang glide and putting that fast forward there anyway to trip somebody up. And Justin and Diana, honestly, they've seen every season of the show. They should know better.
Okay. So you think that the problem was that it was weather dependent, or the problem was it was too aggressive a move for the first episode?
I think the problem was that it was weather dependent. Like, there was a catch there. If the fast forward says there might be a reason out of your control where you can't actually do this fast forward, then maybe you shouldn't do it. And it was also, Justin said on Twitter that it was a good 30 minutes outside of the city. Yeah. That is a pretty big risk.
So once you say you're going for it, do you have to go for it, or you can go back at any point?
You can go back at any point.
Okay. So what about the aggressiveness of it? What if it wasn't weather related? Do you still like the move? Or would you still not like the move?
If you are out in front and you see that fast forward and it's not a million miles away and it doesn't have a big red flag on it, literally.
In this case, yes.
In this case, literally. Then you're stupid not to go for it.
Okay. So you don't mind the aggressive move. It's more the weather dependency that bothers you.
Yeah. Aggression is something I think it's a little bit less frowned upon in The Amazing Race.
So Justin and Diana, they go for it, and they're really like, on cloud nine as they're going for it, and they're feeling great. Everything is coming up for them. They're so happy. And then they get there, and the guy's like, yeah, I don't think this is going to happen. And they have to go back, and they've now lost all of their money because they spent so much money on the cab ride to go that far out of the city, and they come back. And it really was a tale of two nights for Justin and Diana, because then it looked like hope was lost. Now, I felt like they showed a lot of promo commercials of Justin and Diana crying in this. How did that make you feel? Like, it seemed to me like, okay, well, I feel like something is going to go wrong here, because I know I've seen a bunch of commercials where they're showing Justin and Diana crying. Like, that was a big part of the marketing campaign for this season of like things can go wrong on The Amazing Race. Look at this.
Yeah, I think we were pretty well assured from the first few promos we saw this season that the first leg was not going to turn out to them nice for Justin and Diana.
Yeah.
It was really, they hammered that point home. We got the best comment in the chat room, could I just say. Alex G said, a team that wears green and cries all the time, it's like we've never seen that before.
It's a burn.
Yeah, it's kind of a sick burn. But I thought it was hilarious.
But in terms of then them going through this, did you feel like they were going to be eliminated?
I think you don't give that much screen time in promos to a team that is getting eliminated that leg. So I knew it was going to be like one of those high highs and low lows. The Amazing Race loves that stuff.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's talk about the team that ultimately did come in first place, probably to the surprise of few. Team Texas rebounds from a rough start. They did not have to go visit the Cristo di Redemption. Redentor. To get redemption on a night like this.
Yeah, they did not need to high-five Jesus.
Fist bump.
Yes. Well, he's got his hands out like this. He's looking for the high five. There's a fantastic Photoshop of him with the Statue of Liberty, and he's got like one of his arms around her. It's very funny.
Yeah. Okay, so Team Texas, they really are able to bounce back from a rough start to the night where they broke their paddle boat or their pedal boat, and then they ultimately are able to win out in volleyball. Who would have thought those guys would be good at beach volleyball?
Who knew? I mean,
Yeah.
they're so handsome and buff. Like they don't look like they'd be good at anything physical.
Yeah, but they did, and then they move on to win and come in first place. Now, there's a little bit of a wrinkle this season where we're going to have the Express Pass. Of course, we've seen this a bunch of times on The Amazing Race. The team that comes in first in the first leg of the race gets the Express Pass, and we've seen where they have a second one where they have to give to somebody, and we've seen where they don't have a second one to give to somebody. But this time, after you use it, you have to give it to another team to use in the next leg. Is the move
Huh.
always to give it to the team that's going to be in last place?
It depends. I don't think it's always the move. I think it really depends on the team.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can give it to the team that's getting eliminated. Like, that would just be dumb.
So, yeah, because it's to use in the next leg.
Yeah, it's to use in the next leg.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you don't necessarily need to give it to the team that's coming second to last every single time. I think you need to be judicious about it. Like, you need to think about, like, who is less likely to screw you, who might have information you might like. I mean, you don't want to go all Marie on it, but you want to take into consideration who else is out there and what you think might be ahead and who might actually help you.
So we had, in addition to Team Texas, then Jasmine and Diana. No, sorry.
Danielle.
Jasmine and Danielle, they came in second. They also turned out to be very good, prolific beach volleyball players.
Yeah, strong showing from the track stars. I was impressed.
I was impressed with the soccer volleyball people.
Yeah, the soccer volleyball people were ridiculous, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
They weren't taking it easy on anybody.
no, they definitely weren't.
They were not. They were not. I
But
think
they could beat these people at volleyball with one hand tied behind their back.
Yeah. I would have been on the slide puzzle.
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
I think so. And now the slide puzzle did not seem like it was going to be that hard, and God knows we've seen so many of them on Survivor throughout the years. But I think it probably was harder than us at home really got the sense of, because I think the pieces all looked very similar.
Yeah, well, it was actually the pattern that's on the boardwalk at the beach, and it's this kind of repetitive wave pattern, and I think the distinctions between the different tiles were very, very subtle, and they had to match up exactly. So it was not an easy puzzle. And slide puzzles, I don't know, I guess if I'm ever going to go on one of these shows, I need to do a lot more of them so I don't risk, having Jeff Probst yell at me that I'm wrong again.
Jessica is wrong! Team Shack Attack, they certainly struggled as well with the slide puzzle. Were you worried for them at all tonight?
I wasn't worried. There were enough people behind them that it didn't seem like they were ever in any real danger.
Did it speak to, though, potentially some discord in Team Shack Attack?
Potentially. I mean, they have said that their relationship is kind of tumultuous, and they did there were a couple of times where they made comments at each other that didn't feel necessarily like they were 100% loving, teasing comments,
Yeah. And Rick was like, don't talk to me. Let me just handle it myself.
Yeah, that doesn't bode well. This is leg one. You got to save your screaming for later.
Yeah. And so they end up with a third place finish tonight. A good start for my pick, Team Shack Attack.
Yeah, that's a strong start. I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of them, I think. They're going to be an interesting team, that is for sure.
And now what about Denise and James? They were the team that ended up coming in fourth place tonight. We heard Team TMZ refer to them as the Norman Bates team.
I thought that was a little mean. I think Mother Boy is much funnier.
Yes, a little more mean-spirited.
Yeah.
And then I did feel like Denise is one of the breakout personalities on the show so far.
Yeah, oh my God, these guys are great. I think I underestimated them drastically, both in terms of how good they'd be at racing and how entertaining they were going to be.
Yeah. And so Denise has to put on her lucky lipstick before she gets to the mat.
Yeah, and she clearly went out and like picked up lipstick that matched all of their matching Under Armour gear. So good for her. And she's keeping it coordinated.
Good for her. We had the newscasters also who had a pretty good night. Just one of the things we talked about was we didn't know if they were going to be more of their authentic selves on there, or were they just going to be in newscaster mode. It did feel like that they were very much in newscaster or anchor mode throughout leg one.
Yeah, they started out like almost to a fault newscaster mode, but I
Yeah,
know that the race, like the producers told them to do that. I'm not
sure.
going to fault them. Like, you know, someone's off camera being like, why don't you guys pretend you're on the news? But they definitely seemed like they're still in that phase that I think a lot of reality TV people get into, where you still are acutely aware at all times that the camera is on you.
Yeah.
And a lot of people fall into that trap where they're still playing to the camera a lot. And I think when they relax a little bit more, we're going to see a little bit more of what they're really like as people.
I think it would be fun to sort of just go through life in newscaster mode.
You know, Rob, you could try that if you like, but I think the experiment would be better. You'd have to leave the studio every now and then. So.
Well, no, I think I'm going to go try that on Snapchat the rest of the night, and I'll film it and see how that goes with my wife. So I'm headed down into the kitchen tonight, and I'm here with Nicole. Nicole, what's for dinner tonight? What's going on?
And she's gonna bite your head off.
What are you even saying? You're not even making sense right now. Honey, I'd love to see what we're going to have for dinner tonight. What are you making in here? Why don't you show us a little bit about, can we get in here? Can we get this? Okay, what is this? Now, how did you prepare this?
You know, you might have better luck with Dominic.
Yeah, he'll just ignore me. He won't get
He
mad.
would like that.
He might get mad. But, yeah, a good start for them. No major problems. The cousins, maybe also two more to break out. Look, I could not believe the cousins went with volleyball. I could not believe that they decided to go with sand instead of sidewalk. I was like, guys, I don't know about this.
Yeah, well, you know, one of them was, he was a state wrestling contender. So
But he
they're
wasn't
not.
a volleyball, state champion.
No, but I think he assumed that it's going to call on a lot of the same skills. If he's kept it in shape, then, maybe they'd have a shot. Because volleyball is not something like being tall helps, but if you can get under it, I think you still have a shot at scoring points.
Yeah. I don't know if that's necessarily apples to apples, wrestling to volleyball.
No, it's absolutely not apples to apples. It's probably not even like apples to beach balls, but I think they assumed that the more athletic one was going to call on their strengths.
Yeah.
And they only had two to choose from.
Kudos to them for getting it done.
Yeah, they rocked it.
Yeah, I loved it. Good on the cousins. And it looked like they showed a point where they were sort of having a low moment before they did it.
Yeah, but they hammered it out.
Yeah. And Justin and Diana, they showed up first to go and try to do the puzzle. They ended up doing volleyball, and they turned out to be very good at volleyball also.
Yeah, they were great. I didn't expect, they seem like such regular people to me, and in a show that frequently casts, world-class athletes and people that generally keep it in really good shape. These guys, they're in good shape, but they're not in, TV star shape. So I was surprised that they were that good at it, but in a good way, I was happy.
What about Ernest and Jin tonight? What were your first impressions of them?
Oh, they didn't look good on that water bike. That was not good.
That was not great.
And they overthought everything. Oh my God, these guys are they're giving Shireen and Varner a run for their money in the overthinking department.
Why? What did you think they were overthinking?
They went while they were waiting for their helicopter. They go over to the map and they just make a list of absolutely everything on that map. And they would have.
You want to sleep in your car?
Nobody wants to sleep in their car.
They really don't want to sleep in their car anymore.
I have a feeling we're going to be hearing that a lot for however long they make it in the race.
Yeah. Well, we talked about that if they discuss that a lot, then it's going to be a sign that's a winner's edit, or it could also be that they're going to lose in that episode.
Yeah, it's always one of the two.
One of the two. All right, so far, winner's edit for Ernest and Jin?
Well, they're still here, so who knows?
They're still here. Although Ernest easily distracted by the ladies.
Yeah, that's going to be a problem. And of course they took him to Brazil first. And you know that greeter, like everyone in Brazil looks like that, no lie.
Wow. Is that
So,
true?
yeah, it's true. I've been to Brazil.
I've been there too, but I didn't see that many. There was only a couple of very attractive people when I went when I was there.
Yeah, I mean, I think they hang out more on like Ipanema side of the beach, but yeah, so many really, really um, very tiny bathing suits filled out very well, I think is the way
Okay.
I would put that.
There you go. So yeah, very distracting night for Ernest, and yeah, Phil, I thought really did play into that that he had that woman on the mat with him.
Yeah, well, if you got it, flaunt it, right?
Yeah, could have had some awkward moments though, where with these teams like us. Oh, do you like what you see here? Like they're like, oh yeah, Phil. Like, well, that's my daughter.
I feel like Phil has done that before too. Like,
Get a good look, Ernest.
he's had somebody there and like is clearly trying to get people to hit on the person. And like maybe you sign up for that. Like maybe they're finding these people on Tinder. They're like, hey, you want to hang out on the Amazing Race mat? Maybe get a date.
Sure.
You get the date card.
Good.
Take out the greeter.
Yeah, we're looking for people for the next blind date Amazing Race. If somebody hits it off on the mat, boom, you're on the next season.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Why not?
If you're not going to play to win, play to get asked back, right?
That's right. Let's talk about the cheerleaders. How did you think they ended up doing tonight?
That was not a good week for the cheerleaders.
Mm.
And they looked like they got run over by a truck by the end of it. Like, it just took a lot out of them.
Yeah, it did.
Although I did like their spirit, like when they finally got the puzzle.
They are cheerleaders.
They are
That's
cheerleaders.
The one thing they do have.
Yeah, their excitement was really endearing when they finally nailed that puzzle and they knew they were not going to get eliminated.
Yeah, they were pumped up.
Yeah.
They did it. Although they did come off very sad in the volleyball game, because I remember when we did our preseason preview and we talked about that, and they were like, people always underestimate the cheerleaders. We have to go to training camp, and it's so hard physically to be the cheerleader. Like, you would think that a physical task that they would have been able to have a good shot at that.
Yeah, and that always comes up anytime we have cheerleaders, and we have had our fair share. So I don't know. They did make the good point that, it's not something they've practiced a lot, but who else was 5'0" and rocked that task? Alex and Adam. So I don't think being short is an excuse.
Yeah.
And I was surprised at how quickly they went to that well.
Yeah. They very it wasn't a great moment.
No, not too good.
Why did the cab driver make them get out of their cab?
I think maybe he was tired of them. Like, maybe he had places to be. Maybe he just didn't want to be on television.
Because, that really defeats the purpose of a cab if the person who's driving the cab can just drop you off wherever he wants when he's tired of you.
I have had that happen to me like 3 or 4 separate times in New York. Like, the cab driver
just says to you, I'm tired of you?
No, he doesn't say he's tired of me. He pulls over and he's like, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore. And
driving a cab or driving you anymore?
Driving me anymore. Or one of them said, the cab is broken, drops me off and drives away like nothing's wrong.
Well, what are you saying to these guys?
Not a word. I sit in the back and I play Candy Crush like every normal American.
Does the cab driver want conversation?
I don't think so. When the cab driver wants conversation, I chat with the cab driver. But it's happened, like, everyone I know has had this happen to them a few times where the cab driver inexplicably decides he no longer wants to take your fare, and he lets you out and you pay him and you get a different cab. And every time I've done it, I've gotten another cab pretty quickly, and the other cab driver's like, that guy sucked. Why would he do that? And even the cab drivers don't know.
I feel like you shouldn't have to pay if the job did not get completed.
I have tried to argue that point. I tried it once, and then I never tried it again. So I lost that argument.
What happened? He said, well, now you have to stay in the cab? Now you can't leave?
Well, I didn't want him to call in the cops. Like, he didn't invoke the cops, but I thought it was going to go that way, so I just paid him. I'm not a confrontational person, Rob. This is why I do the podcast and I don't go on these shows.
I feel like you have a good claim if the police came and said, I wanted to go here, he wouldn't take me here, and then he wants to take my money.
Yeah, I don't know. It was It was never good. But I'm not the only person this has happened to.
Okay. All right. Well, let's hear everybody's story in the comments. Let us know. Let us know everybody's cab story when they get dropped off places that they don't want to be. But
Yeah.
they were
P.S. If
able
you
to.
don't live in New York, you don't have to weigh in on this, okay?
Yeah, they were able to recover eventually and get there. Are you surprised that they made it to the volleyball game as quickly as possible?
Well, it's a long haul. Like, if they got dropped off at, like, Post 01, I can't remember which direction the different stations go, but I think there's, like, 8 or 9 of them, and if they got dropped off at Post 01 and they were going to Post 04, it's probably, like, 2 or 3 kilometers. So it's a long haul, but it's not an impossible haul. Like,
So,
as I recall, like, I was staying on Copacabana when I was there, and we walked, like, all the way down. We were about halfway down the beach, and we walked all the way down past the end of Ipanema, and that was 7 kilometers. So that was a bad day. I got a sunburn.
yeah. All right. So, just then, tell me, who was the team that impressed you the most tonight?
Honestly, I was most impressed by Motherboy. Like, they did an amazing job. Like, they were good racers. I like them a lot. I'm rooting harder for them than I thought. And I was impressed by the track stars. I thought they did a great job
What
too.
track stars do that really impress you?
They were, they were right out in front the entire time. They didn't really make any mistakes.
And besides Team TMZ, who is a team that you were higher on coming into this that were now, after one night, not as high on?
Well, as much as it pains me to say it, Justin and Diana had a really rough leg, and I'm still rooting for them. I still think they're awesome, but man, that was hard to watch them crying so much. And if they're crying on the first leg, that's not good.
I know, isn't this the curse of the super fans, though, that we've talked about, where, like, the more you prepare for the race, like, the more that it somehow backfires when things don't go according to the plan?
It's true. There is kind of a superfan curse out there, and people in various seasons have managed to get past it, and in those seasons they're not portrayed as superfans, even though they definitely are. I mean, if you look at Luke and Margie, Luke is the biggest Amazing Race superfan there is, and they've made the finals, and they've raced 3 times. And there were Dan and Jordan. Jordan was a huge superfan, and he won the whole thing. They beat the Cowboys. So I don't think it's necessarily like teams can overcome that superfan curse. But I think the Amazing Race loves to show it when someone thinks they know everything because they've seen every episode.
Yeah. That's the thing, I think, on CBS reality shows. When you come in as the person who knows everything, then sometimes they try to show maybe you don't. Maybe you don't.
You seem like you might have some personal experience with this, Rob.
I know a lot of people that do. Just then, also, what did you think of the opening at Venice Beach? Did you like how that played out?
I love the open opening. You know what I would say? Like, the open starting line is fantastic because it shows that people still love and care about the show, and it gets people excited even before they even take off. And I think the energy is a lot better than when they're at some secluded location and like a closed set. I think it ups the intensity to have people watching you. I think that plays into it a lot. Like, there is no downside to the open starting line. I think they should have it every leg.
So we had some of our RHAP listeners there in person to tell us what was going on. Mike Mora, Randy Rice, Ryan German were there. Maybe there might be a few others that were also there. So we like it. Do you think they'll do more of this?
I hope so. Like, the one I went to was amazing. I want them to do it in New York every season, and I will go to all of them.
Jess, did you see the Rob and Brennan sighting?
I certainly did, and while we're on this topic,
yes,
on Sunday night, just to throw this out there, I'm going to be talking to Brennan. So
wow.
You guys can get your questions in, and I'll put out a call for that, but we're going to record our own little wrap-up of Episode 1, and he can tell us all about what it was like to be at the starting line.
I was going to say, and also a rare Rob Frisbee sighting.
Yeah, that guy's, like, Brennan you can find, but Rob's a little harder. Right,
that's his last name, Frisbee?
Yes. That is his last name.
I can't remember the last time I've seen him on anything.
Yeah, I mean, he and Brennan are still friends. They still hang out, but he's harder to pin down.
Yeah, but I feel like, I've known Brennan from, like, forever, and I feel like I met Rob once. Like I never seen him.
Yeah, he keeps it on the down low. Like,
Keeps
Brendan's
it
a
on
little
the
more
down.
outgoing.
He sure is. All right, Jess, you ready to start taking some questions, or is there anything else you wanted to touch on?
Yeah, I think let's do it. Let's get to the questions.
All right, let's take the questions from you guys talking about the Amazing Race 27 premiere here on September 25th, 2015. George Wise wants to know, is a fast forward in the first leg a sign of more to come this season after having no fast forwards last season? Are we in a fast forward era season? Will there be prominent fast forwards all throughout this race?
Well, Rob, what have I been saying for several seasons now? One thing that they need to do to fix the fast forward. They need to have more of them. So
Have more.
maybe they're finally listening to me. So,
Okay.
yeah, I hope so. I
Can't
want to
hurt.
see more. Can't hurt.
Yeah. All right. Then let's take another question. This is from the great Johnny D. Silvera. He says, in 27 seasons, how often do the cab drivers not sign the releases with the show? Hashtag Team Cheerleaders didn't. Well, maybe that's why. Maybe that's what got on his nerves, where it was like, will you sign our release? Will you sign our release? He's like, no, no.
Yeah, maybe so. He seemed like he kicked him out too fast for them to get the release. But this is something, when I talked to Brett and Holly from Amazing Race Canada 1, Brett told me one of the things that made them very good at racing was their strategy when it came to getting the releases. Like, they knew they needed to talk to someone. They'd have them sign the release before they started doing anything, so they didn't have to slow down and get it later. So that ended up saving them quite a bit of time, and I think that's what you need to do on this race, is if there's someone you have to interact with and you know they're going to need to sign a release, get them to sign it right away. And that's something you're never going to see on screen.
This is from Nick 2S. Says, what was the biggest fail ever on episode 1 of The Amazing Race? Taking 4 hours to solve a slide puzzle? No.
Oh, no, we've had a lot of pretty big fails on episode 1. I think the sandcastles, that was a pretty big fail. The sequel to the sandcastles with the chest digging and the firefighters, physically picking up Miami real estate and moving them out of the cab. Like, there have been untold first leg fails.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't see anything tonight. That was a disaster.
No, there's nobody I'm sitting there thinking, is this the dumbest thing I've ever seen in Amazing Race history?
No, definitely not. So let's go to the great Mike Bloom, who says, with the selfie final task last season, what are the chances that the final task will involve Fitbit?
It could be. What I'm hoping for is a thing that I saw on Amazing Race Australia, where they gave everybody a pedometer at the beginning of the leg, and they had them predict, like, they had them try to match each other's step counts. So whoever had the closest step counts at the end of a specific point won a prize. And it was a clever way to showcase the pedometer, which may have been a Fitbit, I do not remember. So product placement may not have worked so well, but they had, it was something they couldn't really think about too hard, but it was something that you could kind of reward somebody that may not have been the most athletic or, may not be winning legs. You can throw out another prize, you can showcase your device, you can not take away from the race too much.
I'm trying to think of what you could even do with a Fitbit, because it's not like, okay, how many steps were walked in this leg of the race? How many steps were walked in this leg of the race? Like, there's no way you could know that, right?
No, you would never know that.
There's nothing to memorize.
I think it'll come up at some point in one of the legs. They'll have to do something with it. Like, last season they had to do math with it. I'm sure that's going to come up at some point.
Yeah. I think that there'll be something like, the team that walks the most steps on, because Jess, as somebody who has watched Big Brother, they have done some stuff with Big Brother and the Fitbit. Fitbits, I think the Big Brother people have worn Fitbit at least during Big Brother 16, and I feel like at some point this season they had it, but I don't think they did anything with it. And they did like a thing where I think the people that walked the least were going to be have-nots in an episode. Not that it was a major payoff to it, but I think there might have also been maybe the person who walked the most. I want to say like Donnie got like a power at some point. I could be just completely making that up, but I think there was something going on with who walked the most steps and who walked the least.
Now, can I just say that as somebody with a very long stride, Pedometers really don't measure my steps accurately. Like, I
Mm,
will go out with somebody, we will walk, we will both have pedometers. Mine will say I walked like 7,000 steps, and theirs will say they walked like 20,000.
yeah,
So I don't know about these pedometers. I feel like that deck would be stacked against me in particular.
messed up. Let's take this question. This is from Baraboo Tycoon. Says, what do you think of giving away the express pass after a team uses it? Well, can we call this recycling?
Yeah, they should call it recycling. You
Yes,
know, just like in the town of Edmonton, Alberta. Everybody recycles there. They're
that's
recycling
right.
on
But
the...
I hear that's nothing special.
Yeah, everybody in Canada recycles. They just didn't want to talk
Yes,
about them all.
yes.
Yeah. So I
So
like it.
you like the green express pass?
I do like the green express pass. I think that's nifty, and I like it. I like it if it's like a hot potato express pass. Like, you use it, you give it to someone else. They have to give it to someone else. Like, you keep kicking it around for like 5 legs. That'd be fantastic.
Okay. Hot potato express pass?
Hot potato express pass.
How come they don't call that potato recycling?
Potato recycling implies something kind of gross.
Here's Samantha Mann who says, "Is it to use? Is it to use in the next leg or by the end of the next leg? Could they give it to the team doing the same task that they want to save?" Now, I think you have to give it to them to use in the next leg.
Yeah, they can't give it to them. Like, if they walked onto the beach, if they had the express pass, they walked onto the beach and they saw Kelly and Siobhan working with their puzzle, they couldn't give it to them then. It has to happen when everybody's off the course.
Also, from HII says, "Do Kelly and Siobhan lose their jobs?" No, I don't imagine why they would.
Well, now they've got something that makes them really easy to mock. Of course they didn't lose their jobs. TMZ is probably going to give them a promotion because they can just put them on the show, and if there's nobody to make fun of that day, they can just make fun of them.
Yeah, I do think it'd be fun to watch TMZ on Monday.
Yeah, I might even DVR that. I'm going to DVR the TMZ, LOL.
Yeah. Let's go to Mr. Air Sonic, who says, "Who's hoping for a good food eating roadblock?" We haven't had one of those in a while. You
I
hoping
love
for a
me.
food eating roadblock?
I love me some food eating roadblocks. They could have one every leg, I'd be happy, because the great thing about Amazing Race food roadblocks is that on Survivor, if you're going to eat something gross, you only eat a small quantity of it. On Amazing Race, they're feeding everybody, so they don't really see the downside to giving them a giant amount of food to eat, and giant amounts of food equal comedy.
Okay. Let's take another question. This is from Cole Jordan. So, Jessica, since you always talk about if the challenges were good, how did you feel about them? I think that they could have done something else instead of the helicopter asking one question. Any idea on what they could have done? I agree. I think sand versus sidewalk was fine, but I do think that, sure, it was beautiful to fly past the Christ statue. However, I don't think that was a great task.
No, it absolutely wasn't a great task. And it was one of those things, like, it reminded me of the finale of season 24, like, where you had to fly past something and identify it. If somebody gets that wrong, they're not going back up in the helicopter. Like, that's just not going to happen. So I'm not sure what the point of it was other than just to show them something beautiful. And there is a lot of really amazing stuff in Rio that they could have gone to that they didn't really explore. And even though this is the 3rd time they've been back, they could have put anything there. I think there's really a lot of beautiful things that I would love to see, and Cristo Redentor is the most recognizable thing. It's like that and Sugarloaf, which is where they have the cable car from Moonraker.
And also, if you didn't catch the name on the first time there, can't you go up to any person and say, "Hey, what's the name of that statue?" Isn't that like being on like Ellis Island and it's being like, "Hey, what's the name of this thing right here, this big
Yeah,
green
or
lady?
you just
What's her
go,
name?"
you just like throw your arms out and be like, "What's this?" And everybody's like, "Cristo Redentor."
So you like the idea of doing charades?
Yeah, totally. Because
Yeah.
nobody speaks Portuguese on this show.
Yes.
Some
Okay,
people speak Spanish, but
Sven Scott said, "Didn't the dancers get the answer off the list they made, though?"
yeah, and why not? Like, that's not cheating. There was even a task. In fact, it was a task in Brazil in season 13 where they were let out in this field, and there were all these advertisements on the walls, and they just said, "Okay, find the answer." And the only way to get through it was just to write down everything that was on the wall, go up to the task judge, and read everything off the list.
Hmm.
So it's a valid strategy. I think they might have wasted a little bit too much time on it when they could have just like gone past the Giant Jesus and like who's not going to be able to identify Giant Jesus?
I don't know. This is from Maddie D. Do you think that Team Beefcake having to use the Express Pass before Leg 5 changes the potency of it? What do you think? How potent is the Beefcake guys' Express Pass?
I don't think, like, if any team needs an Express Pass, it is not these guys.
Yeah, I think that'd be fine.
You know, their life is fine.
This is from Jeff, who says, what switchbacks do you think we could see this season?
Well, I want to point out I saw a lot of landmarks in that season preview that look to be taken directly from Season 1. So I think we're going to see a lot of Season 1 in this edition.
Well, you know, it's funny that you mentioned that because our own Josh Wigler, our great friend, that he did an interview for Parade.com and he interviewed Phil, and one of the things he discussed with Phil was that they are going back to a number of Season 1 locations, places that they have not been to since Season 1.
Yeah, I did read that interview, and it was fantastic, and everyone should definitely go and read it on Parade.com. And yeah, I think that's definitely, we're going to see a lot of shout-outs to the original race, and with that in mind, I'm definitely going to try to talk to a lot of Season 1 racers this season.
Yes. Is that why we saw Robin Brennan at the starting line?
I think part of why we saw Robin Brennan at the starting line, I don't know if this was apparent to everybody, there were a lot of former racers at the starting line. There were a lot of people, a lot of them live in LA, so they just kind of just showed up, and they didn't really get any camera time except Robin Brennan, but I think even Phil recognizes that Rob coming out to one of these events is kind of a rarity, so he needs to encourage that.
It's huge.
Yes, huge.
Mike Bloom says, who would you put your money in a slide puzzle battle? Team TMZ or Tony of Lachos?
My money's on Tony.
Yeah.
But I think we need to throw Dan into that mix, too.
Dan was fast, he just couldn't get it right.
Yeah, if you get it fast and it's wrong, it doesn't count as getting
But
it.
Dan got close, like Tony was like, but he never got close.
Yeah, but he was going fast enough that, like, it's like the infinite monkeys and infinite typewriters.
Mm-hmm. Eventually, they're going to write Shakespeare?
Eventually.
Eventually,
they're going to solve a slide puzzle.
All right, and then let's do one last question from Mark Slayer. Who is Jessica's favorite team so far, and why is it the beefy young dude bros?
He's busted my chops there because he knows we are coming off of, and we're coming off of several seasons of the international editions where beefy young dude bros have won, and I think it's a team archetype that's really, like the first couple of seasons of the U.S. Amazing Race, we had those guys win, and they immediately decided, well, we gotta kind of counterbalance that. We gotta change the course. We gotta cast fewer teams like this. So I'm gonna be really upset if these guys just sweep the board. That's all I'm saying. Like, we don't need that. And for a couple of guys that were recruited on social media to come into this and just demolish everybody, I don't think it's fair.
All right, Jess.
All right.
We need to start talking about the hashtag for this episode of the podcast.
All right. Well, what do you got, Rob?
Okay. I don't have one written down, so let's let the chat room ruminate on that for a minute. Was there anything else from the episode that you wanted to make sure we touched on?
I think we've covered it pretty well. We didn't talk a lot about the paparazzi.
Okay, yeah, so I don't think we mentioned them at all. I'm sorry about that. Sorry about them, paparazzi.
Yeah, I mean, they did a lot better than I
Logan
thought
and
they
Chris.
were going to do.
They
Yeah.
were very good at volleyball also.
Yeah, I was impressed with their volleyball skills, and they seemed like they were approaching everything with a really level head, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
And we didn't talk about the multiple Kardashian references that we got.
And yes, and Caitlyn Jenner.
Yeah. So we could do with fewer Kardashian references next week.
Yes, you don't want to talk about any Kardashian stuff?
Yeah, no, and CBS, if you were thinking about it, please don't cast Kardashians. I might have to not do the podcast if that happens.
We also had a Kanye West sighting.
We did. I think that's Kardashian adjacent.
I think it's more than Kardashian adjacent.
Yeah, he's an honorary Kardashian.
Okay, so I would ask for Kardashian adjacent, but that's probably
That's a
too
lot of
many.
characters.
There's a lot of characters.
I liked potato recycling. That's a lot of characters too, though.
Yes. How about the green pass?
Yeah, hot potato pass.
Hot potato pass. Okay, let's
Yeah.
go. Let's do that. Hot potato pass in honor of the Express Pass here in season 27 of The Amazing Race. All right, Jess. So is that locked in? You're going to talk to Brennan this weekend?
I am. We're talking on Sunday night.
Okay. So then you can catch that on reality TV wrap ups and in our Amazing Race podcast feed. Of course, if you want to subscribe to Rob Has a Podcast, you can go to robsthewebsite.com/iTunes for reality TV wrap ups. Those are our reality TV podcasts that are not hosted by yours truly, but by Jessica and many of our other talented co-hosts. You can get that at robhasawebsite.com/wrap ups. That's RHAPUPS. And of course, you can get everything on the Rob Has a Podcast app by going to robhasawebsite.com/app. Jess, do we leave anything out?
I just wanted to throw out to everyone that I've got one more wrap up coming out this weekend. So this is a busy podcasting week for me.
What are you talking about?
Dan Heaton and I still have to wrap up the Amazing Race Canada, which finished up on Wednesday night, which really made it the busiest night in reality TV history. So we got to do all of that, and I'm going to be writing a blog about that, and of course my regular blog about Amazing Race.
Okay. All right, good. And then I want your attention undivided on this current season 27 of Amazing Race.
Yeah, I'm going to stop burning the candle at both ends immediately.
Well, we'll actually wait a few more days because we're also going to be at the live Know-It-Alls this Wednesday night in New York at Caroline's Comedy Club to watch Survivor and do the show live in front of a studio audience.
Yeah, and you guys, if you're going to be at this thing, please come hang out with me and talk to me because I'm flying solo and I'm going to be like socially awkward penguin when I walk in there by myself. So.
No, stop it. You know everybody.
Everybody knows me. I don't know everybody.
Fair enough. All right. Jess, great to talk to you. Great start to the season. Scott, thanks for pulling together all of these questions. Very much looking forward to it. You know, I haven't gotten a scheduled time for our Amazing Race exit interview with Team TMZ. I hope that we will have that for you. If I find out that we are not, we're scheduled to do Amazing Race exit press this season. I just haven't gotten the time yet on that. So either there is maybe some hesitancy from Team TMZ to talk about that with Amazing Race exit press, or they just haven't got the schedule together for Monday. Busy week at CBS.
It is. It's a busy week, and maybe they're going to be. They got a TMZ episode to shoot. Maybe they're hoping that that's all the mockery they're going to take. But if they talk to you,
that's too much. That's a bridge too far.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Have a great night, and we'll talk to you again soon. Take care, everybody.